Hello and welcome to Seattle City Makers. I'm your host, Jon Scholes. Welcome to our latest episode, everybody. I am joined by Hayden Harvey, who directs government relations for Lime. Lime, of course, is the world's largest shared electric vehicle company. They are on a mission to build a future where transportation is shared, affordable, and carbon-free. And they have scooters and bikes in 280 cities in nearly 30 countries on 5 continents. And the city of Seattle has become one of their biggest markets in the world. And Hayden and I discuss the growth of Lime in Seattle, which has grown quite a bit in these last few years, and planned future growth. We discuss some of the strangest locations where his team has had to retrieve some scooters and bikes. We discuss the new technology that is being tested here in Seattle, the Lime Glider. It's sort of a mix between a bike and a scooter, and we'll have more out on the streets here in the coming months. Hayden previously served on Puget Sound Energy's local government affairs team. He's a member of the board of the Greater Seattle Business Association and a graduate of Auburn University. And he is passionate about micromobility and a daily user himself. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Hayden Harvey with Lime. Well, we did invite you here to talk, of course, about micromobility and Lime and scooters and bikes, but restate your recent travel itinerary, if you would, because that was impressive, and I missed some of these great cities that you just got back from.
Did a good world tour of several of Lime's markets. First with my mom and sister for the holidays, Prague, Vienna, Budapest, Zurich, and then I went to Bali and Seoul after that, and next week I'll go to Portugal, Madrid, Istanbul, and Cape Town.
Man.
Yeah. Then I'll be here in Seattle for a good long while.
Did you have a favorite from your recent travels, or favorite city?
Korea was a highlight.
Where were you in?
Just in Seoul.
Yeah.
But it pleasantly surprised me.
Is Lime in Seoul?
We are not.
You're not?
We just launched this past year in Tokyo, which is one of our largest global expansions in the past year and in past several years.
I'll be in Tokyo in April, so I'll jump on a scooter there.
Yeah,
What's the bike network like in Tokyo?
Their bike lanes, their bike network is quite good. The way the scooter system operates is a bit different. It's a mandatory parking zone, and parking's all done on private property with businesses, things like that. Whereas here we have a free floating model.
So back to Seoul, your favorite of
I don't know about favorite. It was a highlight. An unexpected highlight. Bali is like always the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
But
what was it about Seoul that resonated with you so strongly?
It made sense. I like cities that are intuitive. Like Berlin is a great example where
well organized.
I don't speak German. I certainly don't speak Korean, but I could figure it out pretty well. And I think I got some good weather. I was expecting it to be very frigid, and it wasn't. The food, of course.
Yeah. And then you were mentioning you were getting settled in San Francisco, and you split your time down there and up here in Seattle.
Yeah,
and what's your take on the Bay Area? I mean, the headlines continue to be fairly negative. You got a new mayor down there and some positive momentum and change. But what's your sense of the mood and the environment? I was down there, I don't know, in November, and we'll be down another month or so. But what's your take on the Bay Area?
I was born in the Bay, so I'm a Bay Area kid. There's a soft spot in my heart for San Francisco. I think Seattle is what San Francisco isn't in so many ways, and in some of the best ways. But what I would say about San Francisco is the neighborhoods are still so alive, and I don't work downtown. I don't spend too much time downtown. It is coming back, and they're doing a lot of great activation work downtown. But the neighborhoods are so alive, and some of my favorite restaurants are in San Francisco. And San Francisco still has a culture that people want to be a part of, and I quite like that. And so there's a good yin and yang between Seattle and San Francisco for me, where I kind of get to play the weather off of each other too, extend my summer a couple weeks a year by going down to SF. But I have high hopes for the new mayor and the new administration. I think things feel different in San Francisco than they did this time last year. And in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I love that city. Would never bet against it. It's
Exactly.
great. It's a great place.
Yeah.
So we were chatting, I don't know, several months ago,
Yeah.
and what registered with me that I didn't realize is how strong of a market Seattle is for lime. I think your
100%.
third most active market in the world. Is that
So second,
second?
in North America last year.
Okay.
And then seventh globally.
Okay.
And
Did we slip? Were we third?
No.
I
I misspoke, but
I was probably
yeah.
overstating, exaggerating.
But
But
to
seven
be-
is pretty good. How many markets
I
are
mean,
you
when
all
you
in
think about
across the world?
265.
That's pretty. Seven's pretty good.
Yeah. And when you think about some of the cities that we're outperforming, they're much larger than Seattle. They're some of like the sprawling Western European capitals with hundreds of thousands of kilometers of protected bike lanes and things like that. And so to see Lime almost do 5.9 million rides in 2024 here in Seattle
Wow.
is pretty insane.
Within the city limits.
Yeah.
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 And this is your oldest market?
Oldest active market, here
Yeah.
in Seattle. We launched pedal bikes in
Mhm.
2017 and have done over 17 million rides since then, which is pretty crazy.
What's your take on why Seattle has taken to micromobility in the way it has relative to cities with a lot more density and bigger bike networks and protected bike lanes, although we've added a lot of infrastructure and improvements over the time that Lime's been here. But what's your sense of why Seattle's been so successful for you?
I'll talk about like at a high level, the existential. I think people want to get around in the city, not in their cars. I think they like being outside. I think Pacific Northwesterners are hardy folk. And I think at times it's objectively the easier option to get to where you want to be. I live on the hill and spend a lot of time downtown, and often it's just faster for me to hop on a bike or a scooter and be at my meeting or dinner with friends or whatever it is. So I think at a high level it's that, and I think to your point about sort of the city and what it's investing in, if you build it, they will ride. People want to use Lime. It's a fun way to navigate this city. We have a nice grid. We have pretty things to look at if you're outside of your car. And as the city builds more and more infrastructure, we see more people taking to two wheels instead of four.
And I read somewhere that you even got your mom on
I did.
scooters.
I did get her
She's a
on.
scooter now?
The next hurrah is going to be getting her on a glider, our seated scooter here in Seattle. But it took some coaxing. She was a little apprehensive, but last year I was able to get her on her first scooter ride.
I've had to.
She'd have you know she hasn't ridden a bike in like a decade either, so this is a big deal.
Yeah. I've had to limit my scooter riding because I was just doing too much of it and not walking as much as I should. Taking a scooter 4 blocks, and I'm trying to be moderate in my scooter usage.
I have been known to ride a scooter the 2 blocks from my apartment to the dentist office from time to time.
They're so dang efficient.
It's just you get used to the on-demand nature of it, and the local ops people here in Seattle would tell you when there's not a scooter nearby my apartment building, they hear about that. I depend on Lime unless it's like snowing. I will ride in the rain.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to, I want to say walk the walk, but I think scoot the scoot, whatever you want to call it. When there isn't a scooter right out in the front door, it's, hey guys, can we fix this?
And you mentioned the gliders.
Yeah.
What do you call them? Is that what you call them?
Lime Glider is the name, seated scooter.
And you debuted them here in Seattle, right? They started here. Are you in other markets with those yet?
So Seattle was the first pilot city in the world.
I haven't ridden one yet. I'm tempted, but what's the
this coming spring, summer. We'll have to.
Will
get
we
you
see
on one.
more gliders here?
You will. You
Yeah.
will. And to your first question, we also have glider in Europe as
Okay.
well. And glider is sort of the counterpart vehicle to a new bike design
Uh-huh.
as well that debuted in Atlanta and Zurich.
What's the new bike design?
It's lower profile, lower to the ground, lower center of gravity, uh, designed to make the rider feel a little less up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle performs quite well for our traditional Gen 4 bike, and I think people quite like it here and become quite used to it. The basket, storage opportunities. There's just a tradition of biking here that I think people like a bike. But we're excited for these vehicle modes because they're sort of designed to attract people like my mom, perhaps, who think, Lime isn't for them. And while we've seen huge growth of ridership here, there's a lot more people to get out of their cars on a given day, on a good sunny summer day. And these vehicles are designed to be, one, more safe, but two, attract people who may look at a standing scooter and think that's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't ridden a bike in a decade, like my mom, like Lime might not be your
Scooter's
first.
a easier entry point. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's something about not pedaling. There's something about a throttle. I think that either makes people feel like they have more control or just more willing to give it a go.
Are there? Do you find that there are scooter people or bike people, and you're sort of one or the other?
Yeah, not exclusively, but certainly yes.
You've got some preference.
There's definitely. I would have told you before a lot of European travel that I was a scooter person because I'm often maybe have a shirt tucked in or something like that. And I don't want to be bent over. But when you take a longer ride, the bike really appeals to the rider. And we last year transitioned to introduce throttles to all of our bikes here. And that was a big game changer for me. I think just...
you don't got to move your feet.
Yeah. I mean, I still move my feet, but like the ability, especially with the hills we have here, to kind of, I don't know, just makes it a little bit easier. Yeah.
How do you all think about like little kids and families and and moving them around in safe ways? And I never have had a little kid on a scooter behind me. I've never done that, Hayden.
Good.
Well, I don't have little kids anymore. They're bigger, but they want to ride scooters. But technically,
sure, you should.
They're not supposed to.
You need to be 18.
You need to be 18, of course,
to ride Lime. But when we look at Europe, there's a much more societally acceptable phenomena of sort of cargo bikes and e-bikes for the family, right? Not just the child seat that we're kind of used to here, but longer benches and different sort of designs. And I think just in the past year, certain European cities have started to gauge vendors' interest in providing those types of options. And the hardware team, the industrial design team at Lime are thinking about those things. I think any sort of child seat's probably a ways off for us here. I'm motivated to just get single adults out of their cars and onto our devices. But I think as the prevalence of getting around without a car increases, we'll have to be thinking of those types of options for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool in downtown. You see not a lot, but a handful of folks with like their cargo bike with their kid on the back, taking them to preschool or daycare before they go into the office. And
certainly here more than most places.
And it's great to see people moving around that way. And
I think people integrating different modes into their lives, like Lime's not going to replace every journey for every person, right? But if we can get to a place where 1 in 3 or 1 in 2, we are integrated into the business of people's lives, that's a future where decarbonizing transportation becomes much more really center focus.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Options.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, options are good.
Yeah.
Are people getting better at not parking these in weird places and like Elliott Bay and tops
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
buildings? And,
Certainly in Elliott Bay. Yes, I've gotten a lot better at that. On the whole, yes, I would say parking compliance is increasing. Utilization is also increasing, which I think makes it difficult to gauge for the layman, right? As you walk around and you see more devices, I think it's hard to gauge if rider behavior is really improving, maybe in the way we
right,
all.
because you've expanded the fleet quite a
Sure,
bit
yeah,
in the
yeah,
last
we certainly have.
several years.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly work to do, and I think teams, product and engineering teams here in Seattle working on different types of solutions around parking. But on the whole, I think people have, as they start to use Lime to conduct the business of their lives, have started to understand what proper and improper parking is.
Yeah.
That's not to say that there isn't some improperly
What's the
parked devices.
strangest spot your operations team has retrieved a scooter or bike from?
Yeah, I mean, I see Lime devices all matter of places. And so I'll speak personally before the operations team. Charlie XCX was in Seattle this past year, and I went to a drag show on the hill, and the entire cast of the show rode out into the bar I was at on Lime scooters. So that was maybe the oddest
Really?
place.
Like into the bar?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Through the front door. Yeah,
They
it was
choreographed this.
Much to my surprise.
This wasn't like a marketing
No.
stunt of yours.
It'd
be pretty brilliant.
Sent it to our comms team. And
Yeah,
they
it became a marketing.
Did you do this?
Yeah,
And
promotion.
no, I certainly did not. Well, I've seen Lime device parked is an interesting word, on top of a bus shelter.
Okay.
Recently.
I think
That
I've
was-
seen one of those too. Yeah.
Yeah, that was special. The guys got out there and got it down
Yeah.
really quickly.
Somebody
but
went to some effort for that.
yeah, where there's a will, there's a way. I've come to find in terms of what people want to do
Yeah.
with our devices. But as the service has grown, I think the operations team has grown in a big way, right? And so they are out hundreds, thousands of touch points a week, conducting moves and battery swaps and sweeping light rail stations and
Yeah.
moving devices to where they should be. And I mean, the mid ambassadors as well often move our devices to the curbside, away
Mhm.
from building facades and things like that. And so, there is work yet to be done on parking, but I think if you think about where we started in 2020 to today, I think people have begun to inherently understand what right and wrong is
Mm-hmm.
in a way that maybe wasn't true in years past.
Yeah. Or they do it once and put it on top of the bus shelter and kind of get it out of their system, and then it's not as exciting the next time.
Yeah, we
around.
deliver a nice warning or a fine in the case of the bus shelter, and
Because you know who parked it there,
well,
or you
We
have
know-
some idea.
yeah, we have a good idea, and I think when we look at an end trip photo versus a find it, fix it ticket or something like that, and they match, we can act in good
yeah.
confidence that we know who sort of parked egregiously, and then we issue warnings and fines for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you in other markets in the county and region?
Yeah.
What other cities are you?
So we're in Shoreline, Redmond, Bothell. Shoreline being our most recent expansion, and sort of a 12 square mile expansion to the Seattle service territory. I'm really focused on we didn't want anyone to hit any sort of boundary or anything like that. It really is a seamless sort of service area expansion. And coincided with the opening of the light rail stations up there as well. And I've seen good ridership up in Shoreline, particularly sort of from what I would call like the commute rider. Yeah. But Redmond on the east side, and I hope to see other east side cities take to Lime here in the near future as well.
And we've opened a number of new light rail stations and more to come over the last
Yeah.
year and a half. Are you seeing when a station opens, Lime activity around that station?
Yeah, certainly.
Increases?
At least Shoreline being the best example. I think we'll see that in Redmond here.
For sure in
this
Redmond, I would
year.
imagine.
But yeah, when people are using Lime in droves to connect to public transportation, be it a bus stop or a light rail station or the ferry terminal, the water taxi in West Seattle, they're really using Lime as that first last mile connection. And we see a high percentage of trips and in and around transit locations. And so, yeah, I suspect as more light rail stations open, we will certainly see increased activity there.
And then what about the technology itself and the scooters specifically? What like technological advances is the team considering, contemplating, trying to solve for? Like I think of like the hills downtown. Like you can get up the hill on a scooter, but you often, especially at the south end of downtown when the grade's a little steeper, you're doing a little bit of a leg assist. The batteries have gotten better. There's been improvements over the years, but what are some other improvements folks can look forward to?
Yeah, I think when we think about how we're improving our vehicles, there's a hardware component and there's a software component. There's the app. There's navigating people to and where they want to be. And on that side, we've seen huge increases in features like destination entry, which we hope to be rolling out in the coming year or two, and really looking at how people interact with our app to have a good confidence in their utilization, right? Like, am I getting to where I want to be? Am I parking properly? And a lot of software features are being developed towards parking, validating that someone's parking in a way that isn't obstructing.
How does that work? Like, so it tells me to take the photo to. So is that all AI that's sort of assessing, like, is it by the curb? And do I see a street behind the...
Yeah, the N-Trip photo you use today is AI model that's evaluating if you're blocking a tactile pavement or the middle of the sidewalk or something like that. We're piloting technology that creates a much more rapid feedback loop. And so in a future, with high degree of confidence, you might not be able to like essentially end your ride if we've deemed you to be parking incorrectly, and you'd hold up the phone and you'd kind of move the scooter to a place that is more preferential and not obstructing the walkway.
Because now I can say I parked it correctly even if I didn't, and I can still park it, but then I'm sending you a photo that shows otherwise, and then you send me a nicely worded warning.
Yeah. On the hardware side, it's all matter of things. We can talk a little bit more about Glider, but on the scooter side, it's bigger batteries. I think before I started working here, people would kind of talk about, well, will it get me there? And now our batteries will have a range of around 30 miles. And our fleet has an uptime of like 95%. So 95% of the time a scooter's out on the street, it is charged and rentable and ready to go.
That is something you definitely notice more of.
Yeah.
Like walking up to scooters with red lights on them is just not something you come across as much anymore as a rider.
And I think from a power perspective, they are stronger. I know what you're talking about, a little foot assist. I call it the scoot of shame. There's getting from the waterfront up. I make it up Pike just fine and down Pine just fine. There's a few of those streets that get to 10, 11% grade, and those are pretty challenging. But Glider has a more optimized power supply and is really working on getting up those steep grades. And then the hardware team has all matter of sort of prototypes in our labs that they're tinkering on just how power is delivered to mitigate some of those hilly conditions.
Yeah. I always have this debate in my head when I'm going up one of the big hills, like off University or down south. It's like, do I look sillier going 1 mile an hour on this thing without my foot assist or with my foot assist?
Kind of all depends how I'm feeling that
whatever,
day, right? Like if I feel so compelled, I might do the foot assist. And if I'm in my own little world, I might just be crawling up the hill, you know?
Walkers are passing you.
Yeah. There's also
the lesson is to stay on the avenues downtown.
Yeah,
You got to
100%.
use your 2nd and 4th Avenue.
Yeah.
Protected bike lanes.
Get you wherever you want to be.
Yeah.
Really and truly. And I mean, I think even as you connect to various parts of the city using Westlake, getting onto the Burt Gilman, there's Lime has helped me explore more of Seattle than really I sort of would have in the past. And so it's been fun to get excited as SDOT builds out new infrastructure and new projects and take our devices on them for the first time.
And I'm sure we're going to see lots of people utilizing scooters and bikes on the new waterfront when it's completely done in March, April of this year. I mean, there's pretty phenomenal infrastructure.
Yeah, and I'm excited to work with the waterfront and to work with the city on all matter parking solution down there. I think people want to be on the waterfront. It is one of the more beautiful places, I think, in North America that you can hang out.
Yeah.
And I think as you think about our summers and you think about large events that are coming to the city, it's a great place to start your evening before a game or going to Climate Pledge for a show or something like that. And I think we're looking forward to people using our vehicles to get around down there.
Yeah, it's going to be a scooter bike highway down there, no doubt.
Yeah.
And how are you thinking about parking down there? Will it be sort of free floating? Will you have dedicated geofenced areas?
So we have sort of a hybrid parking approach here right now. I think in large areas of the city, there's free floating options that let people be exactly where they want to be. I think as the city, we work with both stakeholders and SDOT to think about parking corrals and solutions, physical infrastructure. I'm really motivated to see a future where more scooters are being parked on the street, and seeing what sort of opportunities as they work on daylighting intersections and pedestrianizing certain areas of the city and sort of implementing their capital plans. How can we integrate micromobility parking just in small rectangles around the city?
Like an on-street space that is a corral.
Or like a near street space.
Yeah.
Something that's physically delineated, something that, sort of as humans, we sort of understand where cars park today. And in our research, we found that even when people mispark, it's not a malicious thing. It's they just don't inherently know where they ought to park.
Yeah,
and so
maybe some people think they're doing you a favor by parking it against a building under an awning to keep it out of the weather, right? Or
all matter of things like that. And
keep
I think
the seat dry for the next rider.
Yes, but I think we're conceptualizing a world where in the densest parts of the city, there's corrals, there's physically delineated areas where vehicles should be parked, and using both infrastructure but also software to ensure that vehicles are being parked properly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I know we worked with you on an SDOT on the plaza at First and Pike in front of Pike Place Market, which is now just pedestrian only. And for a while there, people would park scooters, so you couldn't do much else. But now there's some adjacent defined parking that I think is geo-fenced, right? Like you tried to park in that plaza, it wouldn't let you park it, right?
Yeah. And I mean, we see also that type of treatment at light rail stations.
Yeah.
We just ran a pretty cool public-private partnership pilot with Metro, Sound Transit, and SDOT that incentivize people using Lime micromobility to connect to light rail. And if you parked properly at a station, you were sort of given points that allowed you to redeem a transit ticket. And that type of collaboration between three large entities and us to site and put down treatments at light rail stations that make it more clear where you're supposed to park.
Yeah.
I think we saw really great utilization of that program. But more than anything, it was exciting for me to see the physicality of, okay, this is a real mode that should be parked in a certain area. And when I get out of light rail station at Capitol Hill, I know I'm going to exit and there's going to be a scooter there. I'm going to take it to where I'm going. And to incentivize people making those connections was fun.
Yeah, and the flexibility you have and kind of managing the fleet because you've got control over software is pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, right now, we sort of talked about utilization, but we have more fleet out in January than ever before. We see...
Because you normally, depending on weather and seasons, you'll dial it up, dial it down.
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes to that. If you deploy it, people will ride. I think between return to office and just a much more activated downtown than we've seen in the past, the demand is there. Like we are seeing on a Good Friday in January, 17,000, 15,000, nearly 20,000 rides. And, in 2023, Taylor Swift was our best day ever. It was 22,000 rides in the summer. So to see 17,000 last Friday in January,
that's a great little nugget.
Wild.
Yeah.
And
so you expect this coming summer to probably surpass the Taylor record.
Totally. We did 804,000 rides in August 2024.
Wow.
Which is like we didn't conceptualize that people wanted to ride like that here before last year. And so I'm very excited to see what this summer brings. But I think some of the thinking that's changing for us is it's not just a summer thing anymore. Like winter is as peaky as May was last year.
We've had some good scooter bike weather here in January.
Yeah.
This is good for business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've been away for a while, but I landed and it was like the sun. The sun is out and it's been out day after day.
You missed the driest January in about half a century, I think. So.
Yeah.
And I mean, those daily ridership numbers are pretty impressive, particularly if you put it in the context of like what does a super busy bus route in Seattle carry on a daily basis, or even light rail out to West Seattle. I mean, I think the projections for ridership when that's done is 30,000 or so folks a day. And
so one of my friends at a organization recently clued me in on if Lime was a bus line, it would be the state's most ridden bus line, which is not a way I think of it all the time. And someone else reported recently that on a good summer day, more people ride Lime than enter some of our busiest light rail stations. And so when you think of from a capacity perspective, there is just this moment that we're experiencing of change in real time where it's not a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. I see people in my neighborhood that are my dad's age with their backpack on, coming home from work downtown in a way that, not that my dad's old, but he certainly challenges who maybe we think that the demographic of our core rider is. And so that is something that I think is really exciting. Like the big numbers in summer are fun to see happen and perceive when, I leave my house on a Friday afternoon after a long day and say, so it's a great day to scoot. That's cool, but January ridership transparently gets me way more excited than July because it tells me that people are sort of integrating Lime into the business of their lives.
Yeah, and there's a variety of trips they're taking.
Totally.
Not just to go to a concert or a Sounders match. So sidewalks, if there's one thing that drives folks crazy about scooters, whether you ride them or not, it's, the people are riding them on sidewalks. And we hear that downtown, and it drives me nuts too.
Totally.
How do y'all think about managing that? And I think I asked you when we talked last of like, hey, is there a way to geofence sidewalks? If you can geofence specific parking areas to restrict them or to encourage people to park in certain areas, couldn't you do the same with sidewalks? I think your answer at the time was the GPS is not fine-tuned enough. And there's some other considerations. But how do you all think about this? And I'm sure you hear about it as the kind of the number one irk.
Yeah, one of them certainly is. It's certainly a challenge that at a global scale, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
it's not a
think
Seattle thing.
no. And I
Are there
would
some
say
places that are better about it?
when you think of some of the European
When you've
capitals,
got a lot more,
protected bike lanes,
alternatives in places.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think when you look at a Paris or a London, that
Where it's clear, like, that's where I'm supposed to be. Okay.
yeah, they've created cycle highways. They've created. They have taken the streetscape and changed it, and availed much more of it to non-vehicular traffic. You see sidewalk riding happen in much lower occurrence because there is a parallel network, a streetscape for different modes. Here in Seattle, the research shows that people ride on sidewalks when they're afraid of the streets. Where there's bike lanes, not even necessarily protected bike lanes, but bike lanes, people ride on the sidewalk much less. We have run a series of pilots using AI and high resolution cameras and different models to map and look at sort of at a granular level, sort of the decisions our riders are making. And where bike lanes end, sidewalk riding increases, and where there are new bike lanes built, we see sidewalk riding decrease.
Yeah, so you see that correlation.
We developed a technology here in Seattle last year called Line Vision. It uses some cameras and some models to sort of evaluate where people are in real time. And I had a lot of fun with the product team, who's largely based here, trying to kind of break it, like taking it on weird different. I mean, Seattle has a lot.
So this is something attached to the scooter itself.
Yeah. And it's a bit of a pilot. It's one of the first in-house designed solutions for this type of thing, and we're kind of in an iteration phase right now. But it was really fun to go to different sidewalk treatments and see how it was performing. And I had my little green lime vest on and was trying to not piss too many people off, but it was
So
was
you had
interesting.
had to ride on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I had to ride on the sidewalk, and
Yes,
as
a lot of
the
dirty looks.
technology detected sidewalk riding, it would sort of make an audible alert. It would let you know that you were on a sidewalk. And we ran a long study over the fall and saw sidewalk riding decrease when that audible alert was
Interesting.
deployed. But
So it's not an audible alert to tell the people in front of you to get the hell out of your way.
no, I've thought about that, like a sort of like I'll ring the bell for you if you won't type of thing.
It's directed at the driver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's letting you know that you are breaking the rules.
Yeah.
And we saw sidewalk riding decrease, but still where there's absence of that protected infrastructure, we still saw people act in interest of their own safety.
Yeah, they want to be safe.
Yeah.
I imagine too that visitors, people that don't live here, that might not know where they're going, are probably a little more apt to
We
grab a
definitely
scooter and ride on the sidewalk.
saw increased sidewalk riding around novice is the wrong word, but new riders, people who didn't have a lot of miles under their belt, so to speak. The people who ride here in Seattle a lot and are sort of super users, very low incidence of sidewalk riding. And I think that is a testament to just knowing how and where to go. And it excites me to have future product features that help the tourist, for lack of a better word, understand where to go. Once we get you on a glider, you'll see it's called the cockpit, but the phone holder is really nice, and it centers your phone right in front of you, and really provides kind of a large format screen to help you navigate.
Is the idea that you leave the app open?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And we're able to navigate you around no operation zones and slow zones and things like that, and really optimize your journey, both utilizing safe bike facilities, but also the most efficient route.
And is the fleet expanding over this year?
Yeah, I think it certainly
specifically?
will with the gliders coming to Seattle.
Yeah.
We'll have the largest glider fleet in the world here in Seattle come summer. and they're being built right now and going to be put in containers and shipped over here. And
Where are they built?
They are built, I believe, in China,
Mm-hmm.
but manufacturing happens across Asia,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're received at the Port of Long Beach, like everything we consume, and we use electric heavy-duty trucks for drayage to move our vehicles from the port to distribution facilities. They'll come here to our Georgetown warehouse, and the team will assemble them and get them out on the street.
And charging, how does that operation run today? How are you charging all these things?
I think people are familiar with like the old days, right? I think where you'd see folks collecting the whole scooter and plugging them in at wherever to charge them. We have swappable batteries now, and so the scooters stay out on the street,
Mm-hmm.
and our logistics providers go around and with their fleet, or maybe utilizing even cargo bikes to swap out the batteries. So old battery comes out of the scooter fairly easily, and new battery goes in, and she's ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
The charging happens at our warehouse. Our logistics providers, as Seattle as a market has grown, their facilities have gotten larger too, and so charging across both their facilities and a large number of batteries being charged at ours.
What's the best way to report like a broken scooter? It's like rattling. It's not. You're not able to steer it well. You got on it, and it'll get you there, but it's not a great experience.
Yeah, you at the end of a trip, it'll the app will prompt you and say, "Help me with this ride," and you can leave feedback. You can give it a 1-star review.
So that rating.
The rating is the rating is
the way to do that.
Quite important, but also you'll have an opportunity to write exactly what's wrong. You can also take a picture and submit a photo. If something, like to your point, it works, but it doesn't look maybe how it should, or maybe it looks like someone has vandalized it, or it just isn't how it's supposed to be. You can submit a photo and a message that says what's wrong.
Are your challenges with vandalism consistent across markets, or are there some places where people are just more mean to these things?
Yeah, I mean, across, it's a little uniform across the major cities.
There's some level of vandalism your teams are dealing with everywhere you are.
Yeah. In big cities across the Western U.S., there's a challenge with vandalism.
More so than other markets.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have vandalism problem in Boise the same way I do in Seattle. That said, we've made good strides on reducing. You should come to the warehouse sometimes. We have gallon vats of graffiti remover, and the team is spraying everything down and constantly removing graffiti. And it is just a component of our in-out process at the warehouse. That doesn't happen everywhere. I would also say there's like this odd thing that happens. I see it in other cities here, but specifically in Seattle, where I'm an early riser, and I'll get up and drive down the hill and see that someone last night just pushed lots of bikes, lots of scooters.
The domino deal. Yeah.
That's a uniquely American thing.
Yeah.
Like I have.
We see that downtown quite often.
Yeah.
So your teams have set these up. They've parked them in a nice, beautiful, orderly fashion.
And then between the hours of, midnight and 5 a.m., someone's come and just, which is unfortunate because they have to go back out and do the same job twice. But, we get a find it, fix it ticket, or someone at SDOT reports it to Lime, or we get a report, through our customer service channels, and team goes out and restages the devices. But I uniquely American phenomenon. Like that does not happen in our markets elsewhere. I rode in 18 cities last year. I got my ride replay, our little like Spotify Wrapped for Lime, and it tells me how many cities I rode in last year. And I did not see that type of a thing elsewhere. it kills me too, because I think
Yeah, I
people
don't get it.
perceive Lime as, an app, right? You only interact with it sort of in your hand, but it's very human operation. Like people say, well, is Lime a tech company? And I say, I think it's kind of like a logistics company that does tech. Like it's a very human process to maintain a fleet of 10, 12,000 vehicles out in a city. And so, when you see 4 or 5 bikes in a row knocked over, it's like a human that comes in and stands
It wasn't
them
the
up.
wind.
No.
Yeah.
I hear that all the time. Oh, it was kind of windy last night. I'm like, they're quite heavy. Like,
And in downtown, you mentioned earlier, our ambassadors have been
Yeah.
working with your team and other providers of micromobility, but you all are the biggest here to keep them out of the path of travel and pick them up and all of that. And
places where they shouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have similar partnerships with other downtown organizations and markets you're in?
Yeah, I would say DSA has been in the mid have been really strong partners in terms of meeting the moment, doing the right thing, helping both businesses, but also just Seattleites who want to get where they're going on their feet. We do partner with downtown associations and across North America and Canada. But I would applaud the mid ambassadors for the work that they do, moving vehicles out of. Really, one of the most important things is building facades, right up against the buildings. People who have vision issues or walk with a cane use those lines, those building facades to navigate. And I think a lot of people think they're doing the public a favor by pushing a vehicle right up against a building. And we came to some of the community ambassador all hands meetings and have sort of worked with you all in some education and the folks moving the devices out to the curb has been really meaningful because I think people act with best of intentions, right? And unfortunately, it's kind of worsening a problem.
We have a couple standard questions I want to put to you, Hayden. One, what was your first job?
Yeah, my first job was working in a fireworks warehouse in South Sacramento. I grew up in California, but I went to college in the South. And so every summer I'd come home, and it was the family company that my dad also worked for in college. And we're good friends with that family now. But that was my first job, was working in a fireworks warehouse.
Were you into fireworks at that age? You had to be. You
sure.
had to be, right?
Yeah, I would say maybe that job changed 4th of July for me a little bit. But 4th of July, prior to that job, was certainly my favorite holiday. Working like 16 hours on the 4th of July as the world kind of explodes around you. Maybe took a little of the fun out of it, but it was interesting first job for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. My uncle was big into fireworks when I was a kid. He'd get boxes around the fort. Just I mean, it'd take hours to light them all off. But when you're 12 or whatever, you thought that was
great.
Coolest thing.
No, it was great. And then you were like dealing with fireworks as a commodity, and it was a little less. You only have to unpack so many like 50-foot containers of fireworks for it to be like less cool.
Yeah. It's just stuff you're moving around and
Yeah.
And our final question is, what's your perfect Saturday in Seattle?
Yeah. Perfect Saturday. So I sail. So a perfect Saturday starts with a sail race out of Chill Show.
Oh, right on.
Ideally, there's good wind. It wraps up pretty early, like 2, 3 o'clock. I head home, shower, and get on a Lime bike, head down to the hill, meet up with friends. I love the rooftop in the summer at Terra Plata. And so I usually start there and have some good food, hang out with some friends. And I every so often am a nightlife person, but generally in the house pretty early. And so hang out at Terra Plata for a while, maybe hit up another establishment or two, and then scoot back home.
Sounds like an all right day.
Yeah, pretty chill. Yeah.
Well, thank you for making time for this.
Of course.
And best to you and your travels upcoming.
Yeah.
So give us the itinerary of where you're going next. 'Cause I don't think we covered
Lisbon, Madrid, Istanbul, Cape Town, and then sort of
Wow.
leaving Cape Town, and there's a road trip called the Garden Route that sort of goes out the Eastern Cape, and so I'll be doing that.
These aren't all Lime markets just yet, but
Not yet,
yeah,
no.
but perhaps
But yeah,
after your visit.
maybe. Lisbon and Lisbon is, and I'm very
Yeah.
excited. It's I've heard quite a hilly place, and so we'll see how the Seattle hills match up.
That's great. Well, your travel itinerary is enviable.
Yeah.
Enjoy
I'll be planted here in Seattle
Yeah.
for a good while
Yeah.
after all of this. 2 months abroad, certainly.
We'll enjoy it, and
yeah.
thanks for all you've done to bring mobility options to our city, and look forward to more gliders out there. I'll get on one of those.
Yeah,
here
we'll
pretty
have you
soon,
out
and,
this summer.
Yeah, it's a great way to experience Seattle, and with the expansion of our train system and micromobility, you just feel like you can get to a lot more places than
Totally.
you could even a couple of years ago.
Yep.
So grateful for you and Lime, and how much easier you make it to get around Seattle.
Of course, yeah. And thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, hope you enjoyed my conversation with Hayden, and get out there and try a scooter or bike if you haven't, and keep them in the bike lanes or on the streets with the sharrows, off the sidewalks, of course. And remember to park appropriately. But thanks again to Hayden for making the time to join us. I want to close out with a recommendation of something you got to check out here in downtown Seattle, and a little further down the line here, but scheduled to open in November, or by November, is the 3-project gastro hub, as it was referred to in the Seattle Times not too long ago, by Renee Erickson in the Railspur development in Pioneer Square. Been looking forward to this for quite some time. This is going to be an incredible project, a miniature food hall of sorts, with a 100-seat brewery, a 30-seat pizza shop, and a European-inspired seafood bistro similar to the Walrus and the Carpenter. These 3 entities, the Lowlander Brewery, Unpo Tipsy Pizzeria, and My Oh My, again, are scheduled to open by November of this year. And they will be in the same complex and adjacent to a terrific cocktail bar that's been mentioned on the podcast before, but you can't mention this place often enough. Death & Co. will open by November as well. One of the biggest brands in the craft cocktail world, according to the Seattle Times. They started in New York, have a great spot in Denver and DC, I believe, as well, and will have a Seattle location here soon in the Railspur development in Pioneer Square. So that is going to be quite the location for great food and drink there at the Railspur development. Congratulations to the good folks at Urban Villages, developers out of Denver, who are repurposing the 3-quarter blocks there in Pioneer Square and have been featured on the podcast before. So go check that out. Open by November. Well, hope you enjoyed this episode of Seattle City Makers, presented by the Downtown Seattle Association, with support from James Cito and production by Spark Creative.